Hello folks, this is Tina Catola at the Third Stage Astrology channel, and I'm doing another romantic combination in terms of third stage astrology between the sun signs. And if you're new to this, third stage astrology has a completely different perspective on the signs, on the sun signs, in that each sign has 3 different stages. Each stage lasts for several different lifetimes, and each stage is a completely different personality type. So we're really talking about at least 3 different combinations for each sign and all the combinations thereof. And sometimes you can also get insight into any past life experiences you might have had with the person if you're in one of the later stages. So if you don't know anything about this, I would also recommend that you either listen to, if it's a podcast, or watch, if you're watching it on YouTube, the episodes about the 3 stages of Aries and the 3 stages of Scorpio, because that's the combination we're going to be discussing today. Now, normally what happens is that actually the most powerful indicator of compatibility has nothing to do with what sign you are. That's just to sell books. It's not going to determine whether or not you're going to get along with the person. And it is affected to a degree by the aspects between the charts. That talks about the issues that come up between the people. But really, most of the time, the most important key to compatibility is being in the same stage of the same sign. There are exceptions to that rule, but usually we've got the same worldview, we've got the same understanding, because everybody in first stage approaches life a certain way, everybody in second stage approaches life in a different way, and everybody in third stage approaches life from a completely different way again. There's a totally different perception of reality in the different stages. But sometimes we do cross the affinity barrier, as I put it, and become involved with people who are of a different stage than ourselves. And many times there's a real match there because of complementary traits, but it still can sometimes be a bit challenging. So I'm going to start with first stage Aries and first stage Scorpio. And this is the profound power couple, and it's possible, especially as they get towards the end of first stage, this will be the power couple from hell. Hate to say it, but I will explain that as we get there. So for first stage Aries, there is a sense of oneness with life that the soul has at a deeper level. That is deeper level, they're here to serve life, and they are so much a part of all of existence that if they start out in first stage just trying to serve and give, they would disappear. They'd actually give their very atoms and molecules away, and they'd vanish in the wind. So a first stage Aries has to build an ego. So I call first stage Aries the peacock, because that's its goal. I'm going to become something big and special and important. And in early first stage, it's pretty altruistic, and they're always altruistic, even when they get towards the end of first stage, where they're really frantic and they're so focused on me and trying to become what I want to become. There'll still be these moments where they'll just give up everything for somebody else or some other being that they want to save, because that's the core of what Aries is. However, in first stage, they are apparently going against the grain. So first stage Scorpio is here to serve life and serve a specific purpose. And they feel as though on a subconscious level, they've kind of been sent here from God. God is somewhere else. And they've been sent here to fulfill that purpose. And that purpose is more important than anything else. So we have 2 people who could really be drawn to each other because they're quite similar. Aries is very much about, I'm going to be the big hero. And Scorpio is about, I'm going to complete the big important mission. So Scorpio could look at an Aries as the potential hero that's going to really be the agency or an additional partner to help me fulfill this really, really important purpose. And therefore, they could, it's interesting because Scorpio is really very much purpose-oriented in first stage, and Aries would wear the purpose like a cloak. It's the vehicle for me to become great. There's room for some conflict here because Scorpios, it's all about the purpose. And it doesn't matter what happens to somebody else, including myself, because we have to do this thing that's really, really important here. It matters more than anything else. And so Aries can go along with that because they've got that hidden altruistic side of themselves too. But there's always this point where the buck stops here and it's about me. I've got to look after myself. So initially, the Scorpio could choose the Aries as the hero that's going to augment my mission. And then Aries will see this as, this is the person who's finally seeing me and supporting me. Because first stage Aries will surround themselves with people who support them. And their relationships are not equal. It's all about who's giving to me and who's making me feel special and important and helping me become who I'm here to become. Because they know underneath it all, they're not doing this for a selfish reason. So it gives them, it ironically gives them permission to be really selfish. I'm laughing because I'm an Aries, but I'm not in that stage anymore. But I do understand, and I've had people who are close to me who have been in that stage, and I really get where it's coming from. And so it's kind of humorous. And certainly Aries people in first stage, they have people around them who do kind of subconsciously understand them as well. They understand this is just the way this person has to be right now, and they really are a pretty amazing person in lots of ways. They're developing their talents, they're developing their skills. When we have the chemistry of love, the differences between these two signs don't appear too great. They're going to cause some incredible fights, but then generally speaking, that sense of chemistry and that sense of we both have a drive is going to bring them back together a lot. Certainly, if Scorpio ends up feeling like Aries is far too selfish, Scorpio will dump Aries and Aries will hate Scorpio. They'll hold resentments, both of them, for a long, long time, which of course will create a karmic connection that will bring them back together, if not in this lifetime, in future lifetimes. However, this couple can stay together for 3 or 4 lifetimes and really be engaged in what it is they're doing. And Scorpio might even make some excuses for Aries, because Aries is still so incredibly talented and useful in terms of Scorpio's mission. Now, as we get to the end of first stage, what's happening is that both of these two are starting to get frantic because they're both feeling like they haven't quite gotten to where they want to get to. Scorpio has not completely fulfilled their mission or their purpose. There's a burden of guilt that's starting to weigh down both of these people. Aries hasn't become everything they wanted to be yet. They didn't become as great a hero as they wanted to. There's no matter what kind of level of success they've expressed, there's still more that isn't enough. And then they end up being so thoughtless in this anxiety to become me, really great person, that they hurt people. Both of these people at the end of first stage hurt people, and they don't mean to and they don't want to, but it is a reality. And so this is a couple that are struggling in different forms of guilt, and it's when they're running, both can run away from this final reckoning. For Scorpio, it feels like, God, they always felt God was up there and out there and sent me on a mission. And now God's probably mad at me because I hurt people. I hurt too many people. I tried to fulfill this mission. Now I've hurt too many people. And so some will collapse down into second stage quickly because they feel bad about it and they feel guilty. Others will say, well, I've still got this really important purpose, and I don't want to be destroyed or to go through the literal or metaphorical fires of hell because I've wronged people. So I'm just going to be really bad. And Aries can do the same thing. Aries can say, well, okay, maybe you all hate me because I'm so selfish, but I'm really got to be that incredible special being that no one else can be. I've got to be that special person. So yeah, if I'm going to be a jerk, I'm going to be nasty. There's words I could use that are perfect words for this, but I'm not allowed to use them. I'm going to do that. And so that's where we get the power couple from hell, potentially, because these two are they could come together to choose to not have a conscience and to push their will no matter what. And yet the ground is eroding underneath their feet slowly and steadily. Not much fun. So when they have a crash, they're going to have a bigger crash together potentially than they would have had separately. And there's another place where a karmic bond can get created. Now, when we get to the end of the first stage of any sign, we have an opportunity to go straight to the third stage. And the third stage is where the full purpose of the sign is being expressed. The third stage is where we're most of the time consciously working with our spiritual level of consciousness, the higher self, whatever you want to call it. Young souls are doing it unconsciously. But there is this higher spiritual perspective that opens up at the end of first stage, and we have the opportunity to go towards third stage. And because this couple is purpose-driven, because this couple, even if they were the power couple from hell, underneath it all, they are both altruistic souls. They can, especially if they've had several lifetimes together, they can be very, very helpful to one another in helping to go through that transition at the crossroads and go straight to third stage. Because for every sign, second stage is where all the crap happens because we didn't handle the end of first stage effectively. And lots of painful events keep on going on, and we're in denial. It's a mess. It's a valuable mess in one sense because it deepens our understanding and it deepens our compassion for life eventually. So younger souls actually are better served going through the transition, and even older souls can gain value from going into second stage. However, we avoid a lot of stress and we can start actually activating our full purpose in the world if we go towards third stage. So because their reasons for judging themselves are subtly different, they can give each other a different viewpoint on all of this. So what Aries needs to learn is discipline in order to go into third stage. So a Scorpio, because they're already so disciplined, they've been so focused on this purpose that is beyond themselves, they can really give that perspective and that template of the view of reality, or the approach, the conscious approach to life, to an Aries quite easily. And because Aries has, and another thing that happens to Aries people, anybody can become addictive, but Aries actually is the most addictive sign of the zodiac. And it's because they are coming from this state of oneness that they remember more than anybody else does. And it's painful to be separated from that state of oneness. And so because of that pain, they become drawn to addictive behaviors, which simulate that state of oneness and unity that we have when we remember and re-experience the joy and the bliss of being at one with existence and with life. So because they've got this sort of underlying understanding of the oneness of life, they can help Scorpio, because Scorpio, 2 keys to go to third stage. 1 key is faith, and understanding that we're working with that one existence. God wasn't somewhere way far out there and we're separate from that state of being. It's all around us. It's within us. We are it in a certain sense. So to surrender to that, Aries can help Scorpio do that. I think Scorpio can more immediately help Aries, but as soon as Aries kind of makes it through a little bit, as long as Scorpio's been helping Aries all along, that will help even more. As soon as Aries starts to get that perspective a bit more, then they're going to go into that state of oneness more and more, and they're going to understand, Scorpio, this is why you were making mistakes. This is why you were hurting people, because you were not working with that greater oneness. You did not give it over to the divine consciousness, which would transform situations for you, which would show you choices and opportunities that your little personality couldn't think of all by itself. Plus, Aries has got this sort of compassionate side in a way because of that oneness with life. And in first stage, they're less likely to condemn themselves the way that Scorpio is starting to do towards the end of first stage. So Aries can also be kind of helpful to Scorpio with the second key to get into third stage, which is self-forgiveness. To have compassion for yourself, to know that you were doing the best that you could. And yes, it's true, people got hurt. You can't change that now, although sometimes souls can come in and come back and do things that help to heal people. That happens a lot. But essentially, everything happens for a reason. Those people who got in your way, that was part of their creation too. And it's so important to forgive yourself and have compassion for yourself so you can let it go. And you're not living in a hall of mirrors that are constantly frowning at you and condemning you, and it never ends, because that's what Scorpios can get stuck in second stage. So these two can really, really help each other get towards that third stage if they're going to, with the power of love, if they're going to stick it out together at this crucial point when everything was kind of falling apart. They both got very good minds many times. That's helpful too. And so they can go towards third stage together. So when I get to third stage, after I've taken us through second, I'll describe more about what third stage Aries and Scorpio are like when they are together. But if we can assume that they didn't manage to take that crossroads, and most people don't, most people have some awareness of it, but then the path of least resistance, that slippery slope, slides people down into second stage. So in second stage, we have two people that are very similar again, because they both condemn themselves, but they've done it a different thing in terms of how they have reacted to that. So with Aries, first of all, Aries at the end of first stage no longer needs to keep building this great big ego, because Aries really doesn't have a very big ego innately. They just need enough of a sense of personal identity so that they can live their purpose out in the world. So several lifetimes of being an egomaniac gives a very transparent soul a little bit of a sense of identity. It's very bizarre, but that's how it works. So as soon as the soul knows, okay, a bit of sense of personal identity has been achieved, we don't need to struggle to become the great big hero or the really important person anymore. We don't have to focus on ego anymore. It releases that urge. And plus, Aries has felt horror about the ways that they had been selfish and the ways that they had hurt people, the ways they'd been unconscious in pushing their wills and their desires. So there's a release of that all of a sudden. So this natural giving tendency that is the real core of Aries comes back, and we have a very, very giving person. And then we have a person who's giving in too much because they feel guilty. So if I call first stage Aries the peacock, I call second stage Aries the doormat or the bubblegum machine, because the doormat lets everybody walk all over them. The bubblegum machine will give bubblegum to anybody who has a coin, and the coin is, I'm in pain, I'm hurting, I need your help, you're being selfish. You have to give me what I want. Oh my God, I can't be selfish. Of course I'll give you what you want. So they will attract manipulative people who are bottomless pits, basically. And they're really lovely people, second stage Aries people. It's one of the nicest second stage signs, actually, because they only hurt themselves. Although, because their lives are often rather chaotic, because they are constantly responding to other people's needs, they don't have any sense of boundaries in their own lives. This chaos and this inability to take care of themselves means that they're not steady partners, really, because they'll give to you in the moment that you have this powerful need, but then somebody else has a need. And a lot of people get frustrated with the second stage Aries because they're not there for them, because they're out rescuing somebody else and their lives are just a mess, and they don't have a sense of identity. And second stage Scorpio has made the decision that I was evil, I was wrong, I hurt people, I have to pay for this. So I'm going to deny myself the most precious thing in life, which is love. And so they create this very deep subconscious self-punishment mechanism that causes a tremendous amount of rejection in their lives, especially in the early part of second stage, and also often as in the early part of second stage, a lot of abuse. They also will sabotage their purpose, because that's how they were hurting people in first stage, was by pushing for this purpose. So if they either don't know their purpose, I don't know what I want, I don't know what I'm here to do, but they feel like they're really missing something. I need to know what I'm here to do, but I don't know what it is. I feel terrible and worthless because I don't know who I am, what I'm here to do. Or they know what they want, but everything keeps getting in the way. Events and circumstances keep blocking them. They can't get to anywhere near where they want to be, because subconsciously they can't get into that driver's seat again, because bad stuff happened when they were in that driver's seat. So these two would probably be very similar and in many ways very compatible. It would be very hard for them to make contact with each other most of the time. Now, second stage Aries could often get into a relationship with second stage Scorpio where they're trying to rescue them all the time. And it doesn't work, of course, because a second stage Scorpio person may want to be rescued, but their subconscious mind is not allowing them to be rescued. So second stage Aries can get very burned out. So second stage Scorpio has constant crisis, is in pain all the time. In early second stage, there are certain traits of first stage that come into play. So in early second stage, Scorpio may still feel like, hey, I'm important, and I don't know why everybody keeps hurting me. And they have no conscious awareness that this was their own subconscious drive or desire to punish themselves by attracting rejection, often really, really painful rejection. So they're starting to blame the outside world for all these painful rejection experiences they're having. And they, in early second stage, many of them really test their partner. So another thing about second stage Aries is that they often feel very unattractive. which is interesting because in first stage Aries, they're spending hours in front of the mirror, a lot of them. Look how beautiful I am. But it was more, in some ways they recognize their beauty, but in other ways it's still this goal. And because they didn't quite fulfill it at the end of first stage, and now they feel, they know a doormat and a bubblegum machine are not especially attractive qualities, but they can't stop being what they are. So they can be early second stage Aries, especially if a more mid second stage Aries gets together with an early second stage Scorpio. The second stage Aries can constantly get rejected. The Scorpio is pushing them away all the time, and then the Scorpio needs them when they have a crisis, and Aries immediately comes in and drops everything to try and help Scorpio. It's definitely this dysfunctional codependent pattern. As Scorpio continues through second stage, they're less likely to be distrustful and controlling and to reject other people when they reject them, because they've just gotten so beaten down by their experiences. So these two can then come together a little bit more harmoniously as second stage progresses, but they're going to be, instead of the power couple from hell, they're more the downtrodden from heaven, because they're both such sweet, sweet souls. And people have a big question mark over their heads about why do their lives not go very well, especially because Scorpio can't make a living most of the time if they're in that second stage, where their purpose is getting obstructed. They will often feel like their Aries partner's not there for them enough because Aries is rescuing everybody else along with Scorpio. They might still be pining for another partner who rejected them, because there's that sense that pain is still there. But still, because they have this kind, caring quality, they may stay together. And hopefully, eventually, they'll give each other what they could have given each other at the end of first stage, which is that element of insight as they move towards the transition. Now, we're in these stages for 3 or 4 lifetimes, and then we go through the transition between the stages, which lasts for about 1 to 4 decades. So once these two, again, they could go through transition together. Once their lives have been falling apart for far too long, and they're both completely and utterly burned out, and they can look at their lives and none of this is making sense. Why, has someone put a curse on us? Why does everything constantly go wrong in our lives, and why can't we seem to get anywhere? And Aries, why can't I say no to anybody? Why is my life just being pulled apart by the seams by everybody else? And eventually they'll finally start looking, because when the transition into third stage always occurs when people are in too much pain and they are seeking an answer, no matter what the answer. I've got to find the truth. I don't know what it is. It must be here somewhere. I'm willing to face anything. I'm willing to go and find my answers anywhere I can to try and resolve this whole situation. Sometimes there's health crises are another component for a certain percentage of people that goes along with coming to the end of second stage and going into second, third stage transition. So these two can slowly start piecing together that same understanding that they could have had if they'd done the first, third stage transition, that Aries needs to develop discipline, that Scorpio needs to forgive themselves and to learn faith. If they work together, the first key they're going to find together is probably that self-forgiveness piece, because Aries has that sense of compassion and has probably been talking, if they've been in a long-term relationship, they've probably been talking to their partner for years about the fact that you're too hard on yourself. Now, Aries can be hard on themselves too, because again, they just feel they're constantly trying to make up for this guilt pattern. But Scorpio has Aries beat when it comes to that, because they really, really do beat themselves up, and they must learn to forgive themselves. So once that starts happening, then they're both working towards the spiritual level, and Scorpio can begin to understand that faith is important, that working with the divine is important. And if they've forgiven themselves, their purpose starts opening up, as Aries starts to learn that they are a naturally giving person, but that they have to choose something they're going to give to. So here we have a couple that again are going to get purpose-oriented and about resurrecting and developing the purpose. And an early second, third stage Aries and an early second, third stage Scorpio could actually meet in some kind of professional development situation, because they're both really trying to find how to refine their purpose, how to discover their purpose. For Scorpio, it's about how to make it manifest instead of having all these constant obstructions. And for Aries, it's about eventually they must recognize that they have to put their purpose first, because otherwise they'll keep giving everything away to everyone else, because they are naturally giving. They have to decide what it is that they want to give to more than anything else on earth. And when they can focus on that specific form of altruism, then they have to look after themselves, because if they fall apart, their purpose won't be accomplished. So Aries is learning to do that in order to fulfill their purpose. Scorpio is learning to forgive themselves and understand that they are in divine partnership with existence. They can be very, very beneficial to one another and very interesting to one another. And I forgot to unplug the phone. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, so they're very useful to each other in that second, third stage process. Once they get into third stage, then you really have, if Scorpio is a miracle worker, because they have really attained a very powerful conscious understanding of their relationship with the divine, and are able to draw spiritual force down through them and into the situation that they're in, to teach people how to do that themselves. And Aries tends to be very disciplined and live in a relationship with the divine themselves, but they're also very cutting edge, because a third stage Aries always takes some area of life forward in some way. They become very disciplined experts in a specific area of life that is their path of service. And so it's interesting that in first stage, Scorpio could see Aries as a means to fulfill the purpose that they are seeing. In third stage, of course, each person always has their individual purpose, but in third stage, Scorpio can be a spiritual vehicle for a lot of the things that Aries is trying to achieve. So you often see with these kinds of soulmate or karmic patterns that in one lifetime the shoe is on the left foot, and in the other lifetime the shoe is on the right foot. So in this case, the purpose that Aries has is often more precise and more focused, and Scorpio provides a lot of fuel for that, even though they're going to be off expressing their purpose as well. But it's, it would be this. Now we finally have the power couple from heaven. We've got it all together at last. Now there is also the affinity barrier that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this episode. And that occurs when we have certain traits that match our own underlying patterns, even if we're not in the same stage of development. And this is a sign combination that can cross the affinity barrier very easily. This is because second stage Aries and second stage Scorpio tend to be selfless and self-denying. First stage Aries and first stage Scorpio tend to be more self-centered and willful and driven. And they can match up quite easily between first and second stage in either combination. So a first stage Aries and a second stage Scorpio can become involved. Especially not so much an early second stage Scorpio, because they're still going to be on the defensive. But as Scorpio moves deeper into second stage, where they've really become quite humbled and they're really completely perplexed about why they keep on getting hurt, but we still keep trying in life, they could be drawn to this stunning peacock of a first stage person who just has so much of themselves, because poor second stage Scorpio doesn't know their purpose anymore, but first stage Aries knows their purpose. And wow, do I admire you, I adore you, I love you. And first stage Aries says, oh yes, of course, I'm great, aren't I? So second stage Scorpio can be one of those people that is a person that's there for Aries, one of Aries, first stage Aries entourage. And so second stage Scorpio has their need for rejection met very well by first stage Aries too, because basically first stage Aries just receives. First stage Aries doesn't give back. So Scorpio may be, I love you so much, you're so amazing, and Aries loves that, but then Scorpio wonders, gee, I wonder if I'm ever going to get anything back from this person. And it hurts, because it takes that same old wound that's been there for decades and most likely lifetimes by now, and it just reaffirms it again over and over again. And poor Scorpio can be stuck in that situation of hoping that Aries will notice them and hoping that Aries will love them back. And occasionally, because Aries is very innocent about all of this, occasionally Aries will give them some real recognition of how great and wonderful you are. And then 5 seconds later, Aries is off doing their own thing again. And, bring me my dinner or whatever it is. And so it's a kind of, it's not a happy situation for second stage Scorpio. So if you think, if you are a Scorpio who has had a lot of rejection in your life and you're a very giving person, and you're in a relationship with an Aries who is, really innocently all about themselves and pretty amazing person in many, many ways, but you're just not really getting back, and you're wondering, am I ever going to get back? You're probably not, unless this person goes to the crossroads. So if you see times when they're really upset about innocently having taken an action that caused somebody else to suffer, if they're really frustrated about their lives and really unhappy, this is tricky, because it means that they're getting close to that transition, but it also means they're going to be more abusive. And second stage Scorpio is a magnet for abuse. So you must be very, very careful in a situation like this, because if they can break through and become conscious of where they're at and either move into second stage where they'll be nicer to you and very giving to you, or ideally move towards third stage and take you with them, because you can work on your transition pieces too. That would be great. But in the meantime, please do take care of yourself, because we can't always live on hope. We need to have some kind of boundaries with situations, and it can benefit Aries to the most important word for Aries really in any stage is the word no. And a first stage Aries needs to be told no sometimes, very carefully, otherwise they'll write you off. But they'll respect you if you say no, and you have to do it in such a way, especially if they're the frantic late first stage. They're gonna squawk, and they're gonna really complain, and they're gonna say nasty things to you if you say no. But they'll grudgingly, if you place yourself where you're in a safe place while they're freaking out, they'll grudgingly come to respect you for that. So have some boundaries, definitely, with your late first stage Aries. Consider being open to other people. Most importantly, work on your own self-forgiveness piece, because that's what's going to allow you to have a really totally healthy relationship. It could also allow this relationship to become healthy, because we're all aligned with each other like pieces of a puzzle. And as you progress, the world around you reflects that progression, and the other person may be ready to step forward at the same time. So work on yourself is always number one for everything. Second stage Aries with first stage Scorpio is a similar picture again, because second stage Aries is so giving and so unselfish, and first stage Scorpio is so focused on their purpose. So the second stage Aries sees in that first stage Scorpio their old, beautiful first stage self, because the second stage Aries always feels like I'm looking for some beautiful piece of me that I've lost. And in love relationships, they can really get attracted to something that is an expression of the me I used to be, and maybe when I'm with this person, that me will somehow magically come back. So here's, that shining, intense first stage Scorpio, and here's Aries that can be so giving and can fill in all the blanks and missing pieces while first stage Scorpio is out there fulfilling their purpose. This could actually work for a long time, because a second stage Aries isn't getting hurt as much as a second stage Scorpio would be with a first stage Aries. The second stage Aries will continually put themselves aside, can kind of fall in love with Scorpio's purpose, even if they're sitting back and going, well, it's not really my purpose. I have other things I think I'm a little more interested in, but boy, is it noble. So it can work, but Aries is probably going to slowly get burned out, because as far as Scorpio is concerned, everything is expendable to my purpose. So if Aries collapses in exhaustion, Scorpio will just go, wow, Aries, you did a good job. They're not going to help Aries. They're not going to help Aries learn how to take care of themselves like they need to do in order to go into third stage. Because Scorpio is not about anybody taking care of themselves. Scorpio is about getting this stuff done that has to be done no matter what. But certainly, even in early first stage Scorpio, with a mid second stage Aries, you could probably see a lifelong relationship where some pretty amazing things actually get done. If you look at it a little closer, you'll see some mess around them. Aries isn't taking care of themselves. There's a mess in the environment a lot of the time. Scorpio has done some things that you don't want to get out into the media because they shouldn't have done those things, but they still have done good stuff. They've done big stuff. So these two could stay together for quite a while. And as they progress along, then second stage Aries is going to start to move into the transition into third stage, and first stage Scorpio will start to move to the transition into either second stage or third stage, and Aries could then really help Scorpio make that first third stage transition more effectively even than if they were both in first stage together. Now, we often have a person that's our gatekeeper when we are at first, second stage transition, and that is a person who knows where we need to go, who will not push us, but who will show us the other doorway. You can come this way, come on in, the water's fine, we can go in this direction. So as these two progress, as the Aries goes into second, third stage, can become the Scorpio's gatekeeper. However, if Scorpio does not choose to go into the third stage transition and Aries does, there would be a kind of a sorrowful parting of company. The Aries would probably go on towards their purpose because they have to look after themselves in order to go into third stage. And if Scorpio's just really going to be crashing and burning, and as they go into second stage, they're going to have real negative experiences and a lot of abusive experiences a lot of the time. As Aries goes towards third stage, they're not going to be living in that kind of life anymore or that kind of reality. The danger is if they are in the second, third stage transition and they try to crossroad the Scorpio and the Scorpio goes down into second stage, it could delay Aries' progress to go towards third, because relationships can be catalysts that can help to pull us forward, but they can also be catalysts that can slow us down and it can pull us backwards. So that the Aries can be pulled backwards by all this intense chaos and destruction that goes on. Now, yeah, and I mean, I guess I mentioned that when, second stage Aries can really try to be the rescuer to that early second stage Scorpio that is not necessarily trusting their rescuer. So that could come into play and delay Aries in terms of their going to third, but eventually more than likely Aries will go to third and the relationship will sunder. But is now third stage Scorpio with first stage Aries, they might be involved for a while, but after a while the third stage Scorpio will realize that the first stage Aries is a little bit immature and not well balanced. So the third stage Scorpio would probably part company with that Aries, and I kind of remember them a bit fondly and figure, well, maybe another time. This person's more grown up. And a third stage Aries could also be with a first stage Scorpio because they are very much purpose oriented. If the first stage Scorpio is a very old soul and the third stage Aries is a young soul, they could stay together for quite a while if they've got aligned purposes. Again, eventually the third stage Aries will realize, we got a bit of a lack of integrity operating here at times, because third stage Aries is not really going to operate that way. Third stage Aries is well organized, they're clean. They've balanced the relationships between self and other. They are not too selfish, they are not too unselfish. They keep things honest. And first stage Scorpio wants to be as honest as possible, but doesn't believe it's always possible. Sometimes we have to push the envelope. Sometimes we have to crash through the walls no matter what. So Aries won't be very happy with that. They could help a Scorpio crossroad again. Third stage Aries is not going to have a massive amount of patience for that, because during second stage, They were so selfless. They were such a rescuer. They were very, very tired of rescuing. They learned that rescuing often doesn't work. It can even backfire and make things worse for the other person. So they just won't spend much time on that one. So I think that probably covers all the combinations. And I hope this is helpful to people who are in these relationships, or at least very interesting if you know people who are in these combinations. And I will talk to you all later.